On Lucian's 60th birthday, he invited old classmates to a gathering at my little restaurant. As I pushed the cake cart through the door, I found Lucian sitting at the main table beside his first love, Sophia. "I'm not as capable as your sister-in-law. I can't even wash the dishes," Sophia said, raising her delicate finger. "How can she compare to you? You're a renowned painter now, and she's just an old hag." I felt stuck, unable to move, paralyzed in place. Just then, I overheard a conversation between my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law. If my brother had married Sister Sophia, our family would be thriving now. "Whose fault is it that your brother is blind?" A surge of blood rushed to my head, and I collapsed to the ground. Years of hard work had left my body exhausted. "Don't take her to the hospital yet. Even if you save her, she'll just be a burden." Lucian had just signed my death warrant. This was the family I had devoted my life to care for. A wave of resentment washed over me, and somehow, I found myself reborn, back in 1987, before I had married Lucian. To my surprise, he was acting unusually, refusing to ask me for financial support and seemingly eager to cut ties with me. Apparently, he had also been reborn. If that's the case, let's restart our lives. Introduction. Why are you so late? Lyra will be late for school. Lyra's mother scowled, rushing over to snatch the triangular bag from my hands. After a quick look inside, her anger flared even more. Lyra wanted buns. "Why did you bring tofu pudding? Is your brain made of tofu pudding?" I don't know where I found the courage, but I stepped forward and snatched the triangular bag back. "If she doesn't like it, even better. I won't let you eat it, not even for the dogs." With that, I turned and left, jumping on my old 28-inch bicycle and wobbling out of the alley. At the intersection, a gust of wind hit me, and I realized my face was streaked with tears. For the first time in my life, I had defied my mother-in-law. Just a moment ago, they had pronounced my death sentence, and now, I was back 40 years, before I had married Lucian. Was this a rebirth? My thoughts lingered on Lucian's birthday party. He had said he wanted to gather with old classmates, insisting I should spare no expense. Later, I learned his invitation to old friends was a cover. He truly wanted to entertain his early love, Sophia. Word was that the renowned painter Sophia had returned home, which sparked his desire to have a gathering. Sure enough, as soon as they heard Sophia was back, all the old classmates appeared. After counting, I realized I needed to set up 10 tables. Concerned about freshness, I went to the seafood market at dawn to buy supplies. Upon returning, I oversaw everything personally, from cold dishes to entrees and noodles. I did it all myself, even though my already weak body was pushing its limits. But as hours passed, classmates arrived, chatting and laughing, yet not a single person greeted me. I knew Lucian was always dissatisfied with me, feeling I lacked refinement and perhaps thinking I wasn't presentable enough, so I chose not to disturb them. When the drinks flowed and it was time for the cake, I wheeled the cake cart to the door, waiting for the classmate who was emceeing to finish. As I opened the door, I caught sight of Lucian and Sophia sitting side by side in the host seats, looking like a couple. "This restaurant is owned by your wife, not bad." Sophia looked as elegant and youthful as ever. "How can she compare to you? You're a renowned painter, and she's just an old hag." Their conversation was loud enough for me to hear, piercing my heart like a sword. "Sophia, this fish is great. I made sure to pick one without bones." Lucian placed the steamed fish I had made into Sophia's dish. He was always picky about bones. I had to be careful when serving him. If I ever made a mistake, he would scold me mercilessly. I never knew he could handle bones himself. As I stood frozen in place, heartbroken, I heard 2 voices from inside. If my brother had married Sister Sophia, our family would be thriving. "Whose fault is it that your brother is blind?" It was my sister-in-law Lyra and my mother-in-law. This was my beloved family, the one I had supported for years. Already exhausted, my heart tightened with anger, and I felt weak, collapsing to the floor. My mother-in-law and Lyra were close enough to the door to rush over and check on me. "What happened? Why didn't you fall earlier or later, but right now?" My mother-in-law immediately started to blame me as she saw me lying on the ground. "Brother, what should we do?" Lyra called Lucian over. "We can't take her to the hospital now, even if we save her, she'll just be a burden. Can you or I take care of her? Lucian, known for his clear thinking, immediately considered the consequences and directly signed my death sentence. They put me in the staff break room and returned to the front, continuing their festivities as if nothing had happened. They partied for an entire day, and it was only at midnight when my body was discovered by the staff. They insisted that I had just felt unwell and went to sleep for a bit. Without me as their stumbling block, their lives quickly became carefree. After working hard all my life for them, now I had been reborn. I cried under a tree for a while, finally sorting through my thoughts. Now it was 1987, and Lucian and I were still dating. I was 20 years old and had been running a pancake stall for 3 years. My father passed away from a work injury during my second year of high school, and my mother was in poor health. My brother took over at the factory, starting from the bottom with a low salary. I had dropped out of school to run a stall so I could take care of my bedridden mother. That year, Lucian's family moved into our neighborhood, but they quickly began to take advantage of us. Once Lucian and I started dating, not only did the rent stop, but his family started to leech off of me, consuming everything I had. That year, Lucian graduated high school with poor grades. With tuition fees and textbook costs, it would take at least 400 yuan no matter how much we tried to save. His family couldn't come up with the money, and I couldn't bear to see him without books, so I took out all my savings. From that moment on, things began to change for the better. Lucian was incredibly narcissistic, always thinking of himself as exceptionally talented but overlooked. Whenever his career started to pick up a little, he would create a problem for himself and end up back at square one. If it weren't for my small business keeping his family afloat, I couldn't imagine where they would be. But they were completely unaware that it was my efforts that supported them. Instead, they felt that I was dragging them down. Since heaven had given me a second chance, I decided to stop supporting him and let him fight for himself. I went back to the market, packed up my stall, and pushed my tricycle home. The market wasn't far from my house. It was Lyra who was being dramatic, insisting that I bring her breakfast back because it was too noisy to eat at the market, and she wanted to eat before school. I was busy at the morning market and feeling exhausted, but I still had to make time to bring breakfast home, only to get scolded like today. I must have been out of my mind in my previous life. I pushed the cart into the yard, and there was no sign of Lucian's family. My mother was already up. Although she couldn't get out of bed, she was still busy with her work, doing some sewing to help with the household expenses. I fetched water for her to wash her face and took out the remaining steamed buns and tofu pudding for us to share. Did you argue with Lyra? Why was she shouting for you to come in just now? My mother asked cautiously. We didn't argue, we broke up, I replied calmly. My mother paused for a moment and then seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. In my previous life, she had warned me that Lucian's family was unreliable and advised me not to marry him. It was a shame I hadn't listened to her. Later, she suddenly fell seriously ill, and all the money in our household had been taken by Lucian's family. We didn't have money for her treatment. Suddenly, an idea flashed through my mind. Since everything was possible again, I needed to live well this time. Having just been reborn, I had too much information to process. Now, I needed to calm down and make a plan. I was quite business-minded. It was Lucian's family that had been holding me back. In this new life, I would seize every opportunity because making money was the most important thing. Isabella, come out for a minute, Lucian's voice rang out as he called me from the yard. I walked out and saw his mother's figure at the door. What is it? I stared at him expressionlessly. Now that I looked at him, he wasn't that handsome anymore. Back then, he had a filter on him. Young men didn't bother to dress up, looking all dusty and worn out. Lucian liked to keep clean, which was a big plus. Isabella, let's break up. From now on, we'll go our separate ways and not interfere with each other. His words left me stunned, standing there in disbelief. How could he steal my lines? Seeing me frozen and silent, a hint of smugness appeared on his face. He probably thought I wouldn't want to let him go. But unexpectedly, the next moment, I nodded vigorously. All right. Break up. But you need to return everything you owe me, that way, we'll be even. What are you talking about? Lyra's mother lost her patience, stepping out to pull her daughter back into the house. Lyra, you're still short on tuition. What will happen to the money if you break up with her? She whispered urgently. Mom, don't worry. I have my ways. Lucian shook off her hand and walked back towards me. Isabella, I said not to bother me anymore. I'll pay you back what I owe. I hope you maintain that resolve. You owe me a year's rent, 60 yuan, so pay up. I said, stretching out my hand. He looked a bit shaken. Fine. If you don't pay, move out tomorrow. Okay. I'll move out tomorrow. Was this some kind of game of hard to get? I shouldn't need to use my tricks at my current level. I had to get up at 3 in the morning. Usually, when I returned home after closing my stall, I had no time to sleep and had to help Lucian's family with chores. But now that I had nothing to do with his family, I suddenly found myself with plenty of time. I went back and took a nap, waking up refreshed. When I checked the time, it was already noon, and I had a fresh vegetable dish prepared. There was nothing coming from Lucian's family. Normally, I would have cooked for them, and they would come over to take the food. Lyra's mother peeked into our house, but when she saw I wasn't acknowledging her, she huffed back inside. She should look in the mirror to see what she's got going for her. Why is she rushing to butter up my fine son? I couldn't help but laugh at her mumbling. In my previous life, I had always been manipulated by her words, feeling increasingly small and insignificant. This time, I wanted her to see what her precious son could achieve without me. After washing the dishes, I headed out. The first stall at the morning market was a low building that had originally been a courtyard house. They had knocked down the door and turned it into a shop space. It was a small place that sold marinated meats. Alexander. I called sweetly as I entered. Alexander had run a marinated meat shop for most of his life, but now that he was getting older, he was thinking about returning to the countryside to stay with his nephew. In my previous life, this was the moment he sold his shop and returned home. He didn't ask for much, only 500 yuan, but back then, that was a considerable amount, and my family didn't have that kind of spare cash. In the end, he sold the shop to a neighbor, who still owed him 100 yuan. Now I had 400 yuan in hand, the money I had prepared for Lucian's tuition. Since I didn't need it anymore, I thought I'd buy the shop from him. When I explained my intentions, Alexander smiled broadly. I've been watching you, girl. I knew you'd eventually make a lot of money and become a big boss. It's a deal. You give me 400 yuan, and I'll throw in 100 as well. Great. I promised to keep my word. I was so happy I almost jumped up and down. This was too easy. I wouldn't be like that ungrateful neighbor who borrowed money and didn't pay it back. I went with Alexander to get the paperwork notarized. We switched the ownership documents, and I happily returned home. When my mother heard that I had accomplished such a big task, she was quite surprised. Why are you suddenly doing so well after getting rid of that disaster? I hugged my mom. She was absolutely right. Getting rid of that disaster had made a difference, but I still felt a bit uneasy. Was it really so easy to shake off that disaster? Normally, I woke up early, which meant I should go to bed early. But since Lucian usually stayed up late and I often found myself thinking about making him some late-night snacks, I rarely got to sleep early. Now that I didn't have to worry about him, I crawled into bed early. However, something still lingered in my mind. His resolute decision to break up with me. Could it be that he had also been reborn? Just as I was about to drift off into a deep sleep, I suddenly heard someone outside shout, "Something's happened." I quickly got dressed and ran out of the yard. It was midnight, and everyone had usually gone to bed, but now they were all pouring out into the streets. The dark alley was filled with shadows. A few kids were shining flashlights, the beams erratic as they scanned the area. They were familiar faces, but all wore expressions of tension and excitement. I heard Henry's daughter, Sophia, was kidnapped. Oh no, is that true? Yeah, Lucian's family's young master happened to pass by and saved her. He just brought her home. Which Lucian family? The one that just moved here. What was Sophia doing out at this hour? Shouldn't she be home sleeping? They say she's attending night school, so she gets out late. From the chatter around me, I gathered the gist of what happened. I also understood why Lucian had suddenly cut ties with me. It seemed he had a new life plan, heading straight toward his ideal partner. In my previous life, I had been too busy hustling to make money to catch up on gossip. It was only now that I vaguely remembered that Sophia had also been kidnapped back then, but by another guy named Rhett, who was attending college at the time. He eventually married Sophia and took her to the provincial capital to develop their careers. I never expected this twist. If Sophia existed solely as Lucian's ideal partner, I had no reason to take out my frustration on her. But I learned only after my death that they had actually been pen pals for 30 years. I brought him a new cotton quilt from home. When I entered his house yesterday, I couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia. As a man, his quilt was already worn out. Lucian's indifference towards me was also due to this. She was not blameless in this situation. So now, as Lucian sought to rewrite his life, I would watch the drama unfold and see what sparks would fly. The night breeze was chilly. As people saw Lucian still hadn't come out of Henry's house, they began to disperse. I returned home, too lazy to care about their affairs, instead pondering how to run my little shop. The next morning, I didn't go to the market. I first went to the little shop to hand over things to Alexander, who was returning to his hometown today. I brought him a new cotton quilt from home. When I entered his house yesterday, I couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia. As a man, his quilt was already worn out, and the cotton stuffing was blackened. Today, when I went in, the old quilt was rolled up, ready to be taken away. I handed him the new quilt. "Take it." He was taken aback for a moment but then opened the bundle to see the red quilt cover. "I can't accept this, it's too precious." "Is this your dowry? Alexander, you sold the shop to me, that's our fate. Please accept this gift from me." This quilt was indeed my mother's gift for my dowry, but it would be of no use in this life. All I needed to do was make money, marriage could wait. With tears in his eyes, Alexander nodded and accepted the quilt. Just then, a horse-drawn cart pulled up outside. It was his nephew coming to take him back. After seeing Alexander off, I began tidying up. It was a small, simple house. At the entrance were 2 tables with large bowls for marinated meat, and behind that was a large stove. Further back, separated by a half wall, there was a kong, a traditional heated bed. I planned to recover the ceiling with paper and repaint the walls, clearing space for a breakfast shop in the future. In my previous life, I had built my business up little by little, eventually transforming it into a restaurant, but it had taken me more than 10 years longer than it would this time. Just then, Alexander strode up to me and handed me a dark notebook. "Child, I've thought it over, and I want you to have this treasure. I can't take it with me when I go. You're a good child, use it well, and don't forget me when you make your fortune." With that, he hurried away. I stood there, momentarily stunned, hurriedly wiped my hands on my clothes, and opened the notebook. My mind was blown. This was a recipe. A recipe for marinated meat. Alexander had actually left me the family treasure. This was something not easily given away. People would pay high prices for it, and I had never dared to ask him to teach me how to make marinated meat. I understood boundaries. Now he had given it to me out of the blue, it felt like divine intervention. I vowed to repay his great kindness, whether I became wealthy or not. I wouldn't let Alexander down. I hardly had time to clean the glass before rushing to gather the ingredients according to the recipe. I even bought half a pig's head and set it on the stove to cook. As the pig's head simmered, the smell wafted through the air, and I knew it was working. After cooking the pig's head all day, by evening, it was tender. I had already tidied up the room, and it was starting to look quite different from before. "Are you opening a marinated meat shop?" My neighbor's grandmother, who loved to chat, asked. "Yeah, Grandma, come try this freshly made pig head and give me your opinion," I said as I sliced off a piece of meat and wrapped it in oil paper, handing it to her. "Oh, I feel so bad taking this," she said, accepting it. Soon enough, I had delivered most of the pig head meat. Only then did I lock the door and think of my mom. I wanted her to have a taste too since she hadn't had meat in a while. As soon as I entered the yard, I sensed something was off. The Lucian family's door was closed, but I could hear voices coming from the window. When I walked into the house, my mom was straining to listen. She raised her finger to shush me and gestured for me to listen closely. 2 women were talking, and I could hear them clearly. One was Lyra's mom, who spoke in a flowery manner, and the other was Sophia's mom, Henry's wife. Oh wow, I really had to thank Lyra for stopping the conversation. Don't be so polite, this is what he should do doing good deeds, right? Lyra's mom was being overly insincere, as if she was performing. This is $500, a token of goodwill from me and my husband, Alexander. Please buy Lyra some nutritious food to ease her nerves. So Sophia's mom was here to give money. There's no need for that, we don't need to be so formal between our two families. The kids are already close as it is. Lyra's mom made that statement quite cleverly. Lucian must have prepared her for this. Well, even though they are classmates, it's still nice to show some appreciation, Sophia's mom added, biting hard on the word classmates, as if trying to distance herself from Lucian. I found this situation amusing. It seemed Lucian wanted to follow the same path as Rhett from my past life, using the opportunity to marry Sophia. But it looked like Henry's family was not in favor of the match. Their visit to deliver money was probably to settle things. The two women exchanged pleasantries, and in the end, Sophia's mom insisted on leaving the money behind and rushed out the door. Just then, Lucian walked into the yard. I suspected he had been eavesdropping outside and was waiting for the right moment to come in. Grace, what brings you here? Lucian greeted me with a friendly smile. Lyra, I came to thank you for saving Sophia. When it comes to a girl's reputation, let's keep this matter under wraps and not mention it again. Even through the window, I could see Lucian's expression change. Does Sophia feel the same way? Of course, she thinks the same as us. Let's leave it at that. With that, Sophia's mom rushed out. What do we do now? They're not following the usual script, Lyra's mom panicked. Give me the money, I'll return it to them. A few bucks won't settle this. Lucian snatched the money and stormed out. What about your tuition? You can't just give it back. Lyra's mom was shocked at the thought of losing the money and hurried after him. You don't understand. It's better to fish for bigger ones. Lucian pushed her aside and chased after Sophia's mom. I dropped my bag on the table and told my mom, there's some pig head meat and 2 steamed buns in there. You eat first, don't worry about me. With that, I hurried out the door. Lyra's mom was still lingering at the entrance. When she saw me coming out, she shot me a suspicious glance. She had been watching my every move. Once I stepped outside and headed in the opposite direction from Lyra, she finally retreated back into the yard. I made a big detour and arrived outside the playground of the nearby elementary school. Deep inside the playground, there was a large willow tree, thick enough to be embraced by 2 people. Its branches were lush and green, even in winter, it never completely lost its leaves. 2 people were hiding behind it, invisible to anyone peering from the outside. This was the place mentioned in their love letters, where they often met. Sophia called it their secret hideaway. I waited outside the wall for a while when I finally heard voices. The 2 of them had arrived. Lucian. What's going on? Didn't my mom make it clear that you should accept the money and not bring this up again? As soon as Sophia saw Lucian, she exploded in anger. What do you mean, Sophia? Lucian's voice was icy, his pride wounded by Sophia's family's rejection. Just what you heard. We shouldn't keep in touch anymore, and this matter shouldn't be mentioned again. Sophia added quickly. If you think the money is too little, I can give you 200 more, but that's all I have. Sophia, are you trying to buy me off? Lucian was struggling to contain his anger and spoke as calmly as he could. Otherwise, what do you expect me to do? What do you want? Sophia said bluntly. Have you considered marrying me? Lucian finally blurted out. Have you lost your mind? Why would I marry you? What do you have to offer? Sophia jumped up in disbelief. What do you mean, what do I have? I saved you. Lucian yelled in frustration. Did I ask for your help? Someone else would have saved me if you hadn't. You were totally unnecessary. Sophia snapped back, but I could sense a deeper meaning in her words. Lucian, however, was clearly flustered by the anger. He didn't pick up on it and kept mulling over whether Sophia looked down on him. Do you think I'm beneath you? Didn't you say I was your favorite? Shut up. When did I ever say that? Are you insane? Sophia retreated in shock, backing away. No matter how Lucian called out, she fled in a panic. Lucian, frustrated, tugged at his hair and let out a beast-like growl. What was happening? Were the lovers not meant to be together in the end? I had a feeling Lucian wouldn't just let this go. I decided to watch how things unfolded. My mom said the pig head meat I cooked turned out fantastic, even better than Alexander's. I could imagine the old folks being stingy with their ingredients. Unlike me, I wasn't being careless at all since it was my first time cooking. The neighbors who had tried it all said it was delicious, and the next day they came looking to buy marinated meat. I woke up early to hit the morning market and brought back a big sack of ingredients. I sorted the pig head, pig trotters, pig hocks, and pig offal into large bowls, cleaned them thoroughly, and then put them in a big iron pot to start cooking. I have re-registered my business license, and the shop is now named Fucheong Braised Meat Shop. This isn't the name I used for my restaurant in my past life. It's actually a brand of the largest chain of cooked food in the country. I hope to grow as big as they are. I was initially worried that customers wouldn't buy from me, but as soon as the braised meat was ready, it sold out instantly. I packed up early. I had already contacted the meat vendor, and they would deliver tomorrow morning, which saved me a trip and some energy. With me busy here, no one was taking care of my mom at home. I thought of a great solution. I would sell the old house, just as the Lucian family was about to move out. Once the house was sold, I'd like to see how they managed to live. Then I could buy the single-story house behind my small shop, which would allow for a front shop and a clean workspace in the back, keeping my mom close by. The shop was originally divided for sale, with the main house blocked at the back, so it got no sunlight. Living there was stifling for the owner. When I expressed interest in buying, they quickly agreed to a price that worked for both of us. I sold the old house to a neighbor uncle who had 5 sons. Once the house was settled, I lowered the price a bit, and they were overjoyed at my offer. After moving, they even picked my mom up to stay with them. When Lyra's mom heard I was selling the house, she immediately jumped in. What about us? Where are we supposed to live? I couldn't care less about where they would go. They had previously agreed to rent my house for $5 a month, but I hadn't seen a cent from them. I'd tried to kick them out, but they refused to leave. Now that the house was sold, they'd have to move eventually. I said this with complete confidence, and when Lyra's mom tried to argue, she just got scared off. The rest wasn't my concern. I just had to get everything settled and focus on living well. I ordered a wheelchair for my mom so that she could help with the front-end work during the day while someone assisted her, and we quickly got back on track. Unexpectedly, Lucian came knocking. I had closed up early, and by a little past 7, all the braised meat had sold out. I finished tidying up my stall, lowered the window shutters, and was about to lock up when Lucian asked, "What are you doing?" I jumped in surprise and shouted, "What do you want?" "I need to borrow $500, he said coldly. "I don't have any money." I pushed him back outside, but he bounced right back in. "Stop being a jerk and hand over 500. My sister is seriously ill and needs to be hospitalized." Hearing that made me remember that in my past life, around this time, Lyra had also been hospitalized with pneumonia, costing me over $300. It wiped out all my savings, which I later needed when my mom was hospitalized. "What's wrong with you? Why are you asking me for money? I'm not lending you anything. Are you going to rob me now?" I raised my voice, knowing he usually wouldn't dare to lay a hand on me. But I worried that a cornered dog might jump the fence and get violent. "I don't want to get into it with you. This is your fault. If you hadn't kicked us out, we wouldn't be living on the streets, and my sister wouldn't be sick. Of course, I'm coming to you for money." Since he wasn't leaving, I walked to the door, pushed it open, and reasoned with him. "Are you out of your mind? You rented my house and didn't pay the rent. Now that I've sold the place, you're mad that I didn't arrange a new place for you? Am I your mother or your grandmother? What do I owe you?" People have a natural tendency to gossip. As we argued inside, some neighbors had already gathered outside. Now that it had escalated to the door, a crowd started to form. In those days, there weren't many sources of entertainment, and very few families had televisions. With bellies full and nothing else to do, everyone came to see the spectacle. The neighbors were somewhat familiar with the drama involving Lucian's family. The uncle who had moved out had tried to drag things out a little longer, only to be physically tossed out, with his belongings scattered all over the place. Seeing Lucian causing a fuss today made everyone chuckle. Never seen anything like this. He won't pay rent, yet he's trying to stick it to someone else. Lucian cared a lot about his pride, so he came in wanting to borrow money. But when I ignored his dignity and brought the fight outside, he turned red with anger. This is your good deed? Do you have no conscience? My sister is sick, and you won't lend me money? How is that a lack of conscience? Am I supposed to feel guilty for not asking you for rent? Lucian, what exactly do you mean by this? Money? Why should I? I knew he was eager to distance himself from me, and when I pressed him like that, he hesitated for a long while before storming off, annoyed. Everyone laughed and then dispersed. I wanted to see how Lucian's family would manage without my support during this crisis. As I expected, Lyra didn't pull through and ended up with brain damage, her mental capacity regressing to that of a 3-year-old. All she remembered were her basic needs for food and drink. Now, Lucian's family was living in a new, rented place that was nowhere near the conditions of my family's old home, low and drafty. Seeing Lyra like this caused her mom to have a stroke out of worry. Have you lost your mind? You had a devoted girl following you around, and you had to aim higher. Now that you've missed your chance, let's see how you manage. Lyra's mom pointed at Lyra and scolded Lucian. Of course, Lucian couldn't swallow that insult. In a fit of anger, he went back to Sophia. This time, whatever he said must have worked because Henry's family suddenly agreed to their marriage and even helped them find a house. The neighbors were buzzing with gossip, speculating about why the Henry family suddenly changed their minds. The wedding preparations were happening right on this street, and I watched as Lyra's mom went back and forth, full of energy and vitality. Sometimes I'd see Lucian and Sophia together. Lucian had that air of a small man who finally felt important, intentionally walking a bit slower past my shop so I could get a good look. Meanwhile, Sophia looked sickly and lacked any spirit. How could these two, who had such an insurmountable mountain between them, suddenly be getting what they wanted? Shouldn't she be happy to marry her ideal man? Then, during some neighborly chit-chat, I overheard the secret: Sophia was pregnant. In those days, an unwed pregnancy was a huge deal, and it seemed that was why Henry had quickly agreed to the marriage. But based on what I'd eavesdropped about their secret meetings, Sophia didn't seem to want to marry Lucian. How could she be having his child? Did they have a child in my past life? The wedding came together quickly. Lucian wore a blue wool coat while Sophia donned a red wool suit. The suit was a fishtail design that highlighted her prominent belly, drawing everyone's eyes to it. Henry and Sophia's mom were clearly not in high spirits during the toasts, while Lyra's mom was hyperactive, bouncing around like she was on adrenaline. Lyra was also causing chaos, directly grabbing a pork elbow to gnaw on, then using Sophia's skirt to wipe her hands. Sophia, visibly irritated, pushed Lyra down. Lyra burst into tears, and no amount of soothing worked. Lucian's face was frozen in a forced smile, trying to maintain appearances. This was all secondhand from the neighbors, so I didn't know how true it was. I wasn't in the mood to deal with them. I took my mom to the hospital for checkups, ensuring her health was my priority. Perhaps it was the luck that came with the new name. My little shop was thriving, and I quickly opened a branch. Lucian was also doing well, thanks to his father-in-law's support, getting a position in the office and writing documents. He had a way with words and soon felt right at home, enjoying a good life. However, Sophia seemed to have changed completely. In my past life, she had lived a comfortable life, always studying art and taking courses after starting work, eventually gaining fame for one of her paintings. But in this life, she seemed like a different person. Not long after getting married, she began to show, and she looked as disheveled as a middle-aged woman. Occasionally, when they walked together, they looked like they were from two different worlds. One day, I was at the new shop I had just bought, getting ready to renovate it, when they walked by. Sophia looked like she was about to give birth. Her nose was swollen and red, and her face was quite unattractive. She was walking slowly, supporting herself with her hands on her waist, while Lucian pushed a bicycle beside her, glancing at her with disdain. "Could you walk a little faster?" Lucian urged. "I can't move. Call me a taxi." Sophia snapped, irritated. Taxis were rare in those days, and not every street had them available. It seemed they were headed to the hospital. I heard from the neighbors that after Sophia got married, she wasn't getting along with her parents. It looked like they weren't willing to take care of her anymore. Where am I supposed to call from? If you want to go, just go. Lucian replied, pretending to get on his bike. He had treated me the same way in my past life, lacking any patience or concern when I was sick, acting as if he didn't see me. I never thought that now it was Sophia who had to endure all this. Lucian. You stop right there. Don't forget who gave you everything today. Sophia shouted in frustration. I earned everything myself. Who gave it to me? Lucian's face darkened as he stepped back, then seized Sophia's arm tightly, dragging her forward. Sophia winced in pain and nearly fell, shaking off his grip and glaring at him. Why do you treat me like this? Why must you marry me? Didn't you just say that everything I have is because of you? If that's the case, why should I marry you? He clearly had no intention of pretending anymore. Fine. You've finally told the truth. You ungrateful wretch. You've ruined my life. Sophia was so enraged that she spat blood and lunged to slap him, but he dodged, causing her to fall to the ground, groaning loudly, blood seeping from under her. Just wait. I'm going to the hospital to get an ambulance. Lucian shockingly rode away on his bike. Suddenly, thunder rumbled, and a torrential rain began to pour, drenching Sophia to the bone in an instant. I stood by the window, watching with no pity at all, just staring. Lucian. May you die a terrible death. I hate you. Sophia's curses echoed in the rain. I had just bought a new big mobile phone, sitting in my bag, but I had no intention of calling her an ambulance. Why should I meddle in her affairs? In my previous life, when I was barely hanging on, hadn't she just watched without calling for help? In the end, Sophia didn't wait for Lucian and was taken to the hospital by bystanders who couldn't bear to watch. She miscarried and lost the baby, also developing a high fever from an infection. Although Henry and his wife had their grievances with their daughter, when she fell seriously ill, their parental love awakened. They stayed by Sophia's bedside, scolding Lucian when he finally showed up late. The first thing Sophia wanted when she woke up was to divorce Lucian. Her heart was shattered. Lyra's mom created a scene at the hospital twice, further solidifying the Henry family's determination to see them divorced. Eventually, Lucian couldn't stand against them and went to the Civil Affairs Bureau with them. I had thought Henry wouldn't be too harsh, at least he would save some face. But it wasn't long before they dismissed Lucian from the office, citing his qualifications as inadequate. Lucian was someone who cared deeply about his reputation, and he couldn't take that humiliation. He stormed into the Henry home and caused a scene with them, but Sophia wasn't home, so she narrowly escaped. The day of his eviction happened to be the grand opening of my 6th branch. I was standing at the door to cut the ribbon. Just as I finished with the firecrackers, I heard someone shout that the car procession was arriving. I was momentarily stunned before I noticed the fully armed convoy approaching. Suddenly, I felt a pair of eyes staring intensely at me. Looking up, I met Lucian's gaze. He seemed like a different person after just a few months. The youthful face that once radiated vitality was now ashen, aging him by at least 10 years. As for me, I was wearing a white dress, my long black hair cascading down, radiating energy and enthusiasm. My career was just beginning, and the road ahead was still long. Isabella, look over here. A reporter waved a camera in my direction, and I smiled sweetly, freezing the moment in time. Just then, Lyra squeezed through the crowd, grinning as she chased after a truck. Lyra's mom was calling after her while trying to catch up but suddenly stopped, collapsing straight to the ground, completely motionless. From that point on, Lucian's family exited my life. In the busyness of it all, I almost forgot the events of my past life. I had been given a new lease on life and was focused on moving forward. But I forgot that one person was still alive, Sophia. You wouldn't believe it, but I had also been reborn. Not long after you died in my last life, I had a car accident while dating Lucian, and we both came back to life. Now, she and I had swapped lives. She had become despondent and aged, while I was vibrant and full of energy. After being reborn, you still ended up like this? I feigned surprise, asking. Well, I can only blame Lucian. Sophia replied through gritted teeth. It should have been Red who saved me that day, but he stole my love and ended up killing both my child and my parents. So that's what happened, the child wasn't Lucian's. Suddenly, I understood why Henry had abruptly agreed to their marriage. Lucian had hesitated to call an ambulance, intending for Sophia to miscarry. These people were truly calculating. So why did you come to me? I asked, worried out I can't do much anymore, my time is limited. I just wanted to tell you that I'll go after him, and in every life, I won't let him go, Sophia said as she left, sending a chill down my spine. I realized that Lucian's future wouldn't be easy from now on. It was the same in every life. In their past life, they had spent 30 years as lovers, but now that they had truly become partners, all their love had been drained away. This is the nature of humanity, I suppose.